Georgie? What a nice boat. Do you want it back?
Yes, please.
You look like a nice boy. Do you want a balloon too, Georgie?
I'm not supposed to take stuff from strangers.
Oh, well, I'm Pennywise the dancing clown. Now we aren't strangers, are we?
I should get going now.
Oh, without your boat? Here. Take it.
Welcome to Franchise Killer, a podcast where we pick movie franchises or wannabe franchises, review them film by film, and see where things went wrong.
All right.
Gonna back up really far.
None of those sounded exactly like Pennywise, but
I was close.
Maybe David.
What are you talking about?
Was it? Okay. I'll give
fight you.
Yours is perfect, David.
He always does that Amadeus laugh. Yeah, it gets pretty close.
It's close. I don't think it's quite maniacal enough. That's not an invitation to do it again.
I'll do it a third time.
No. But yeah, that is David's best portrayal of Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise the Clown.
Do you want to be on the podcast? Let's do it. This will be fun.
I'm Reese. Across from me we have
David.
To his left,
Irina.
and to my right,
Henry.
also known as
Noah.
And trying to figure out how he can float too without having to lose an arm we have.
AJ.
You figure it out? Did you crack the code? Are you floating?
Well, he spins in a circle.
We all float down here.
I guess. I mean, I remember that basement scene, but I don't know. I didn't really picture that laugh as too accurate myself.
Why?
Wait, what's your interpretation of the laugh? Like,
I don't know. I don't feel like Eddie Murphy's that sinister.
Eddie Murphy is not in It.
Haunted house? I don't know.
Norbit?
Norbit. Not Haunted Mansion, but Norbit.
That is the biggest stretch I've yet heard. The last two letters of Norbit.
Nailed it.
We should cover
This
that.
is a
franchise.
comedy, right?
It depends on what you're into.
It's got a clown. They're
It
funny.
has some amusing scenes.
Anyway, of course, we're
I
talking.
think I'll be good.
Of course, this week we're talking about It, the 2017 film, not the original miniseries, because that was not released theatrically. This movie, directed by Andy Muschietti, who also directed It and the sequel to this film, It Chapter 2. The movie stars Jaden Lieberer. I'm pretty sure that's a German name, and I said it completely wrong, but we're going to push forward. Bill Skarsgård, Jeremy Ray Taylor, Sophia Lillis, Finn Wolfhard, Wyatt Oleff, Chosen Jacobs, and Jack Dylan Grazer. We got a screenplay by Chase Palmer, Cary Fukunaga, and Gary Doberman. Cary Fukunaga, by the way, was originally slated to be the director of this film, but from what I can tell, or what I've read, is New Line kind of chickened out and went a different direction. Cary Fukunaga directed True Detective, for those of y'all that don't know, that first season. So a lot of people were actually really excited to see his take on this movie. But I think we're happy with the director we ended up with.
So did he? What else did he do in this film?
He's the writer.
The writer.
Like,
so
I
they're
actually
like,
don't
we don't
know-
want you as a director anymore, but you can still write.
Yeah, so there's like 3 people on this screenplay, so I don't know how much of this story is his, but he still gets a writing credit. So I would imagine there's still a good chunk of his material throughout this film. The movie is based on, of course, It by Stephen King. It's a pretty massive book. He wrote it in 1986. So for those of y'all doing the math, that was 34 years ago. And the miniseries actually came out, I think, 1990. So that was like a quick turnaround on
Yeah.
that one. So 4 years.
Well, that was during the phase when Stephen King was literally just releasing books, and then they were just hopping on that for new screenplays for films because it was just really popular. So
Yeah.
kind of like Peter Benchley.
Yeah, man, Stephen King, like, as we've been covering these, just from Silver Bullet and this one already, I'm noticing that there's a real quick turnaround on a lot of his material.
People are like, gotta get it. He's
And
a moneymaker.
almost too quick, because some of those are fun to watch, but they're not. There wasn't enough time to really ruminate on the material, I think.
Yeah, I'm excited to, once we get into the story, to get into kind of y'all's history with the show and with the book. I know a few of us, actually more like one, has read the book.
Way to ruin it.
But we'll get into that a little later. Anywho, for those that are new to this show, on this podcast, we first go over our thoughts on the film before revisiting it for the episode. Then we dive into the story, break it down bit by bit, and talk about the more significant moments. Then towards the end of the show, we give our brief reviews and numbered scores, along with an analysis on the health of the franchise and whether or not this film hurt it. I'm pretty sure most of us, except for one, have seen this movie before, but I'm going to go round table and ask y'all anyway. David, had you seen this movie before this episode?
Yeah, I saw it theatrically. I saw it in theaters when it first came out. I don't think I've seen it since, though. And I don't have much of a history with the Stephen King It story. I never read the book. I did see, I want to say I saw at least half of the TV show, the miniseries, back when I was a kid. Didn't sit well with me. I don't think I finished it. I'm not much of a horror person. So scary things, especially when I was a child, didn't work. So that's about all I got. About all I got.
How about you, Noah?
Yeah, I saw this when it came out in theaters with my lovely girlfriend. It was a good time. She was traumatized.
Is she not good with horror?
She's
No, it's
not
because
good
of
with
Noah.
horror, and she's very specifically not good with clowns.
And she wasn't a fan of your makeup that day either, huh?
No, not really.
So wait, so why did you take her to see this? It's like 2 check marks on the areas she didn't want to see.
That's honestly
Dude.
something boyfriends do. It's like,
It's just the way it goes.
Yeah.
Has Irina never, ever forced you to watch a horror movie? You don't like horror?
Yeah, well, your entire family forces me to watch horror movies, so I'm just
There
a
you
pushover.
go. That's just what it was. Although I didn't know the extent of how much she didn't like clowns. I just knew she had a distaste for horror.
It was a learning moment
Yeah.
for your relationship.
Yeah.
all right, AJ.
Negative. I had not seen this. Like David, I'm not super into horror. I mean, I'll do it, but I don't choose it first. And it's not my wheelhouse, I guess. I remember this coming out and I guess being kind of surprised it got as big as it did. But I guess that's just my lack of familiarity with the genre.
You got a hot topic today, and half the things there, Pennywise.
Oh, yeah. I know, like, the Halloween that year and the next year is like 90% clowns.
Oh my
Isn't
gosh,
that
wait.
crazy?
Do you guys remember when there was that clown thing going on where people went
That
on
happened
college
around
Yep.
the release
Yeah.
of this
Yep.
movie.
I remember,
Yeah.
and people were getting, like, the police called out. There were clowns in parking
yeah.
garages, like, assaulting people.
That was
And storm
terrifying.
drains.
Thanks, It.
Thanks, Muschietti.
How about you, Irina?
Yeah, I've seen the miniseries a handful of times. One of the most traumatizing things for me to watch as a kid. Watching it now, it's more laughable than anything. But and then with this film, I saw it when it came out. Pretty sure we watched it together, David.
Pretty sure.
Yeah.
Pretty sure.
All right, and for my part, I also saw this in the theater. I remember the build up to this movie. I wasn't super hyped for it because I didn't like the design of Pennywise when they originally released it. Totally did a 180 on that when I saw it in the theater and saw the performance. Like that was one of the few moments where the performance like sold the look.
Yes.
But not seeing it in movement was like, no, I don't know if I like this big bulbous
Right.
head.
Yeah,
I could
agree.
just see you like, that is a scary clown.
Yeah.
His head is supposed to look like a balloon.
Yeah, but I remember having a good time with it in the theater, and I've seen it. I think I've seen it a couple times since. So yeah, I've got a pretty good grasp on how I feel about this movie going in. All right, David. Before we get to that story, do you want to give us a quick call to action?
I think I can manage. Let's see. Well, let's see. Clowns. The clown is in the embodiment of fear. Therefore, what is our biggest fear?
Floating?
Floating? I don't know if that's my fear. I think my fear is not having anyone listen to our podcast. I think when we put these out there, we want people to hear us and we want them to enjoy it. And the only way we can do that is getting it in front of them. And you know the quickest way to get it in front of people? 5-star on Apple Podcasts, because that pushes through the algorithm and gets us on the top charts and recommended pages for your top movie review podcast. So if you would like to help us out, you could do that. You could also follow us on Instagram, on Twitter. We have a Facebook page that we don't post on, and a YouTube where I am constantly trying to update all our episodes on there. So yeah, please help us out.
Don't scare David. Rate 5 stars.
I get scared so easy.
All right. With that said, let's get to that story.
Hey.
Derry's not like any town I've ever been in before. People die or disappear 6 times the national average. And that's just grown-ups. Kids are worse. Way worse.
We all float down here.
I saw something. There was this
Clown. Yeah, I saw him too.
look. It's all connected by the sewers. That's where it lives.
It's a rainy day in the small town of Derry. Our main boy Billy does some origami and makes his little brother Georgie a paper boat. Georgie, excited to test out this new toy, goes out to play. This doesn't end well, and let's just say he never returns. The following summer, Billy and his friends Richie, Eddie, and Stan go check out the sewers to find Georgie. They instead find Ben, who is playing hide-and-seek with his buddy Chad, Henry, who is definitely not a bully. Ben, covered in cuts and bruises, needs a good spit shine, so the boys go to the store where they come across Beverly, who helps them acquire medical supplies to patch Ben up. Can we say love triangle? Later, they run into the final member of the Losers Club, Mike, who is being assailed by Chad, Henry. Rock fight ensues, and the group is complete. Each of the kids experiences a nightmare according to their worst fears and realize all of them are being hunted by Pennywise, or It, as they call him, an ancient clown who appears every 27 years to prey upon the town of Derry.
All right.
Ooh.
Good little summary there. First thing I want to throw out to you guys. Stephen King movies have a certain feel to them. Especially the ones, I feel like the older classics. Like when you know when you're watching a Stephen King movie.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, he loves doing that small town vibe where everyone knows everyone, kind of. And then the quaint grouping of kids or people.
Yeah. And what I'm leading to is I don't feel like the modern movies have done as good of a job at capturing that. I honestly can't think of any that really do an amazing job, unless... I'm sure they're out there.
Well,
like Gerald's
the thing
Game.
Is, we could be we have a nostalgia for the older film, so in our hearts it feels more Stephen King because that's what we grew up
In my
on.
heart, I don't
But
feel it.
I feel like if people watch the newer Stephen Kings first, they might grow forward thinking these are the new Stephen King classics.
Well, this leads to my question. Do you think that this movie recaptures the spirit of Stephen King? Does this feel Stephen King to you?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
I have nothing more to say about it.
I guess I'm aiming that question more at you, Irina, because
Okay.
you're the big Stephen King fan here.
Yeah.
I mean, we all are.
You read
but-
the book.
Yeah, I did read the book, and I think what Stephen King is able to do is capture the kind of the light and levity of being a kid again. And I think that's what this movie was able to tap into as well. From the director's perspective and his sister, who was one of the producer for this film, they both expressed an interest in wanting to capture what it was like to be a kid, you know? And they sort of relived that through these child actors. I think that's what they've got here. And it's not necessarily Stephen King. It's that sense of nostalgia almost that carries over. And Stephen King's just able to express that, you know?
Yeah.
Well, and he was a part of this still, so he had his
Right.
fingerprint.
Yeah. No, it's like it's still Stephen King, but that feeling of nostalgia isn't owned by Stephen King. It's something that I think Spielberg has been able to tap into as well.
Yeah, and this came out the same year as the Dark Tower movie with Matthew McConaughey and Idris Elba.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That movie, when I watched it, did not feel Stephen King. It felt very artificial, typical, like, fantasy action, very generic, had none of the things that I expect out of a Stephen King adaptation to make it good. This one, I would agree. I think this, like, captures, for the most part, that spirit of what makes Stephen King good. Like, what I like about Stephen King. It's that small town vibe. You got a group of kids. Stephen King's almost like the horror version of Steven Spielberg.
Yeah.
Like where it's always this small town thing, and your characters are more down to earth, and it has that feeling, and it is able to capture that for me.
This movie is like a perfect embodiment of Stephen King stories, right? Because it does focus more on the children and their relationship with each other than most. And I think what made this movie work was the director's passion for it. Am I right in saying that these are not really big a director? I was thinking the director and sister, the producer. They're not very big.
No, not at this point. I mean, they directed Mama, or he directed Mama. I think she produced it, and that was kind of. I think Guillermo del Toro had his hands in that. Mama was like a fairly
I remember
mid-budgeted horror movie.
Yeah. So, but they're not like a super well-known duo.
No.
But the thing is, I think Stephen King and the other grouping that was involved with this, the production company, saw their passion for it. And they carried that through. Like the behind the scenes of seeing them connect with the children was kind of inspiring, having them work together and become friends and spend a summer together. So that, I guess that all ties together in a movie where it's actually about the kids the entire movie.
Yeah, and you can actually tell that he's got a real vision for how he pictures everything going.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about the opening scene to this movie. It's Billy and Georgie. Billy kind of apprehensively makes him a boat, then kind of watches him go off into the rain playing with his boat, and Georgie comes across a storm drain, and face to face with the clown Pennywise. Of course, this ends poorly as his arm is bit off as he tries to reach for the boat that went down into the drain. Pretty shocking scene and a shocking way to open the film. What did y'all think?
I like popcorn.
I remember first watching this, and if you've seen the miniseries, which has Tim Curry in it, you know this scene is coming. But in that version, all you see pretty much is Georgie coming up to the drain, talking to Pennywise, and then, zoom in on Pennywise's face later with the
does
big
a spin
teeth.
thing too.
Yeah, and then it just kind of switches, to another scene. Or it cuts to another scene. But here, I was completely caught off guard because, you actually see his arm come off. I was not expecting them to go that far.
I was weirdly I thought Georgie should have been in more pain in that scene. He's kind of just like, help me!
My arm is being ripped off.
And it's just this little nub. It's like satisfyingly brutal, but it's also I feel like you'd be...
He's a young actor, and that's fine.
Yeah, I don't even know if
it was all fine.
I don't even know if that's wrong, because you know how much shock would. In fact, he might not even be.
Yeah, it's not
talking.
important. I don't know why I brought it up.
There would be so much shock and adrenaline going through that kid whose arm is ripped off.
I think what you're trying to say is there's something almost kind of, because it's so dramatic, there's something a little campy about the just kind of crawling away and yelling, But yeah, I think there was that shock right at the beginning of, I just saw a little kid's arm come off. And that is very Stephen King. He doesn't really have any bars on hurting children in his books, which sounds horrible, but he's not afraid to have kids die in his books.
Yeah. It's just a flesh wound.
This weirdly is comparable. The beginning scene is weirdly comparable to Up, where they develop their whole relationship in 5 minutes.
Only to kill the
Only
wife
to
off?
kill her.
Yeah.
In this one, you have Billy and Georgie, and you're like, oh man, they're such a good brother.
I know.
Like
that's
brother.
that's
and
what
brother.
makes it so sad.
Yeah, he made him a toy, and then Georgie just loves his brother. He's saying things like, "But Billy's my best friend."
I know.
and it's just like
you
it's
know,
just really
they're
touching.
milking it so that you can feel
you're like,
really
"Oh."
horrible.
Yeah,
Anyone with brothers or kids, I mean, it can.
It's
touch the
probably a
heart.
really rough
Yeah.
scene to deal with.
AJ, from the perspective of someone who does not particularly gravitate towards horror, how did this scene hit you?
It landed pretty well. I mean, it's an infamous scene, so I guess I didn't expect it to be right away.
Go from
in the
0 to
movie or in the
11 right
story.
up front.
Yeah, but there's a lot of things done well in this movie that, from a style standpoint, like the eye shine, the glint in the eyes that is kind of a motif that's repeated, whether it's Pennywise or even the adults.
Yeah.
That kind of evokes that internal demon, so to speak. But it's just creepy, and it's good at building the tension. And I thought that Georgie being pulled down under, and then you have that one lady come out while it's storming and doesn't even notice. It adds to the eeriness of it. All this like monstrosity happens under everybody's noses, and no one knows at all. So
Yeah. I wanted to comment on the eyes too. Like, I noticed that anytime Pennywise is shrouded in darkness, his eyes are always kind of slightly lit up.
Yeah.
In the perfect way, where it's just, it's evil.
Sorry.
And I also love how, and we'll get more into Bill Skarsgård, but I love how quickly he turns. He's always creepy. There's no scene where he's not creepy. There's never a time where I'm like, oh, what a nice clown. But there are times you see the goofy side, and when he turns, it's so well done. Like the immediate change of expression, the immediate change of intent in the eyes.
It's like a serial killer sort of thing, like a psychotic
It's
person.
like that. And to compare it to another Pixar movie, Noah, it's like Finding Nemo, where the sharks smell blood and suddenly their eyes go black completely.
Yes. Oh gosh, specifically the moment where he's kind of buttering Georgie up, and then he gets distracted by his own kind of bloodthirst.
Yeah.
And pauses
hang on
for a minute, and Georgie starts to sense something's wrong.
Yep.
But he quickly reassures him.
It's funny how
everything's
much
all
you
right.
both start laughing, and Georgie keeps laughing, and then Pennywise just is
Kind of.
deadpan.
Pause.
Yes, exactly.
Yep. Laughing time's over.
That's
He
the exact moment.
embodies all senses of the word predator, basically.
Oh, gosh,
Like,
yeah.
every sense of the word.
All right. Let's talk about the Losers Club. Mm-hmm. How do we feel about this cast of characters here? All these young actors.
Amazing.
I think all of them do such a great job. And I was so convinced that Sophia Lillis, who plays Beverly, I had in my mind thought that she has done a lot of work before, like she's very familiar with this. But I was surprised to find out in the making of that she hadn't really had any experience before this in a large movie setting. But she has so much presence on screen. I absolutely love her performance, and she's so natural and reactive to everything. I'm very impressed by all the child actors, honestly. It's amazing to have all of them together.
And this was kind of hot off the heels of, I want to say, like 2 seasons of Stranger Things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So they kind of had that foundation to look at and kind of build off of. And I honestly think it really benefited this movie to have that come before it, just so they could kind of look at it and be like, okay, how can we do this?
Well, that also primed them for a good reception because everyone loves Stranger Things. And this is more of that kind of 80s nostalgia.
Yeah.
Retro
That
80s
Stranger,
nostalgia horror. So hot
Stranger
right now.
Things was
Everyone
filling.
except for Reese.
And then you literally have Finn in this one. Who is in there.
And honestly, I think he does a good job playing completely different characters.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
he's not, like, as Richie. So this character playing Richie is also in Stranger Things as, what's the kid's name? Do you remember?
I don't know in Stranger Things. honestly. I don't know any.
Well, the one that's friends with 11, basically.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't
11's the
know
only
his
one I
name.
know.
Yeah. But, yeah,
Mike.
same kid.
It's Mike.
Yeah. Same kid, but very different kinds of children. So
Yeah.
he does a good job of that.
So let's quickly go down the list. So we've got Jaden Lieber, sorry if I butchered his name, playing Billy or Bill. What do we think about the kind of lead kid here with the wispy hair and the stutter?
Fits that character perfectly. Just, I don't know, oftentimes whenever you see in films people doing stutters or kind of speech impediments, it's over-exaggerated and it almost makes them look foolish. But with him, he really sells it. He seems like he's got the stutters for sure, and it's not, something he can control.
Yeah. Do you think he's good at portraying the guilt of feeling partially responsible for the death of his brother? Like, as a young actor, I think he's actually pretty good at it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially at that age, having to be saddled with, like, hey, pretend like your younger brother's dead, and that's constantly on your mind, and you're looking for him.
Well, also the kind of denial and expecting that, no, he is alive there. And almost trying to evade guilt in a way by hoping that he is there and he's the only one trying to help, you know? So it's very heartbreaking, actually, his performance when anytime Georgie comes up, because you can relate to his acting there.
Yeah. All right, Jeremy Ray Taylor as Ben, the new kids on the block.
There you go.
A friend from Soch. I thought he did exceptionally well. I feel like it'd be hard to play an overweight kid who's picked on by bullies. It doesn't seem like a fun time, and he does a
It doesn't seem like fun.
Yeah, exactly. Very Goonies-esque. I remember watching some of the behind the scenes and trying to get him whenever he's being picked on to get in the mood. They had him scream some things out like "Get off of me" and stuff before they started filming, just to get him in the mood. And he sells it when he's doing it.
You remember why they did that? It was because all these kids developed a really good friendship, even with the bullies.
Yeah.
So all the kids were really nice and good friends. So they had to gear them up for those kind of scenes so that they wouldn't let the friendship get in the way of the action here.
Yeah, I really like that they had them be friends with the bullies.
Yeah.
I don't know. Henry, I don't know if that's a good transition over, but he did such a good job in this that I'm kind of happy to know he's not a douche.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah. I
Ben,
know.
speaking of Ben, while we're on him, didn't they kind of blend his character? Wasn't Mike more the historian with all the town history and stuff, the library nerd in the book?
I think Ben is actually the library nerd, and they give some of that to Mike because Mike really he's the one that has family history here, and so he learns a lot from his father and his grandfather, who basically are the ones that are the ill omen bringers. Essentially, they're talking about how this place is cursed, and they even mention the well house, but Ben is the one that is, devouring all the knowledge of the town and figuring things out, essentially.
Was that even in the original TV miniseries? Because Mike was the one they portrayed in that one as having the information.
Yeah, so let's see. In the miniseries, it's been a little bit. I think they kind of gloss over that a lot in the miniseries because there's just a lot to cover. But, yeah.
He also portrayed his crush on Beverly without being cringy or,
Yeah, to add on to that, I think the love triangle, if you can call it that, it is kind of one.
Yeah.
Is handled in the right way in this movie. It's not, blatant. It's not like, hey, we got to have a love triangle.
Yeah.
It's more told from, I don't even know how to describe it.
Well, there's not a lot of added drama like shows tend to do. They always have a big
It's not an
emotional
inflated
outburst.
tension.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. I think it works because it is that's something that happens when you're this age.
Yeah.
Like when you're middle school, high school, love triangles happen all the time.
Yeah.
That's like, it's just a thing.
Yeah.
Well, especially for a kid like Ben, who's mostly overlooked, you know, and as a kid, I know that feeling.
Yeah.
You know, just being a child that's mostly on the outside looking in, and you develop crushes for other kids. Like it just happens, like for the smallest reasons. And he does such a good job of just kind of like, you know, admiring from afar and kind of looking out for her.
Well,
you know,
what I like too is that when you're a kid that age, you're not just blatantly flirting. You're not just trying to start something. It's both boys kind of like her, and they're both kind of awkward and shy about it in a realistic way. And she kind of understands a little bit and but isn't leaning towards either one of them.
And that's the age where you do something cheesy, like write on a piece of paper, like "I like you," and like slip it under the door. Like that's what you do.
And Beverly's like, that works for me.
Except it was a poem.
yeah, it was a bit more advanced.
I know we already talked about Beverly a little bit, but let's move on to Sophia Lillis. Do we have any other things we want to say about her? I think we're all kind of in agreement that she just
Knocks it out of the park.
She kills
does a really good job as Beverly in this movie.
I know Irina touched on it a little bit, but she seems like somebody who's been in a lot of movies.
Yeah.
When I saw her, I was like, I saw her in something. I know I did.
Yeah.
And no, nothing.
Yeah.
Did she not even do any theatrical performances? Or, I mean,
she might have done something,
music
but nothing
theater or
we
something
saw.
like that.
Yeah, this was her first actual
Movie,
film. You know, like she was probably in smaller work before, but she had never been on like a full cast and crew.
Yeah, so maybe she was a thespian or something.
Her and, for me, Jack Dylan Grazer, who does as Eddie, the kind of germaphobe, I think they are the most,
Yeah.
even though his role is smaller.
Yeah, he's great.
he is such a presence on screen. Like, he knows exactly how to act in front of the camera to get, like, what they're going for.
Well, he's funnier than the kid who's supposed to be funny, in my opinion.
I think he's
Finn Wolfhard?
Yeah.
That's actually really accurate. Accurate. Eddie or Grazer, watching behind the scenes and watching that kid, he's pretty much himself, and I think that's the benefit to acting in this film is that he's so natural at just being himself, and that's what directors want from kids. It's like, just be yourself, but most kids don't understand that. They can't really wrap their head around that concept, and so then you get a lot of kind of awkward acting from kids where they're like, oh, I need to emote here. I need to act this way.
Yeah, that scene though where his mom is like, "Are you forgetting something?" and he has to go kiss her on the cheek. Like his face is exactly how I would have been in front of my friends. Like if I had to go do something like that,
that would have killed me.
Oh god!
I would have
These
just
are
left.
gazebos. They're bullshit.
Okay, so we kind of skipped over Richie here, played by Finn Wolfhard. He's supposed to be coming in with a little clout here after Stranger Things, but I feel like he's a little bit of a letdown. Still fine. Like,
I don't think he's a letdown.
I thought he was balanced
Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought he was balanced exactly.
Well,
without
it was
stealing
hard.
the spotlight.
Yeah, he wasn't stealing any of the spotlight, and also compared to I want to say I liked Seth Green, who played that same character in the original miniseries. He was actually funny and carried a lot more presence. So when I got to this, I was expecting his character to carry more weight. He didn't. It wasn't necessarily bad. It was balanced, but
here's the thing. Here's the thing that I got from him, and maybe this is intentional, but I don't feel like it is. The performance is good. He's supposed to be the comedic relief, though, or at least one of them. And I feel like he embodies like the kid that thinks he's funny but isn't.
I think that's actually exactly what he's supposed to be in the book. He's like constantly making jokes, and
whereas
he's doing
Eddie is
these
actually
accents.
funny.
Yeah, Eddie's hilarious.
Yeah,
but I think I like the way he plays this character because it's almost like it's one of those kids you know who it is. Like you've seen one of those kids, and I describe it as oh, those kids that would sit at the back of the bus when I would go home. Like, I can hear them talking exactly like he is.
That is true.
Yeah, they're
So,
overcompensating with your mom and the like, too mature for their age kind of humor because
they're constantly doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also really appreciated that they decided to do that with him, what with the clout he has coming in, because it would have been so easy for them to just capitalize on his fame and try and make a big buck just off of him, but they decided no,
they
it's
didn't do that.
about all of the kids.
That's the whole cast in general. I feel like they did a good job of not trying to add ultra famous child actors like this.
Yeah.
I like having people I don't know.
Well, yet he's like kind of the one that's in the end most loyal to Bill. Like he's the one that teams up with him when everybody else is trying to back out.
Exactly.
Until they had their, clash. But
True.
And that was the thing about Richie, is that his character was actually incredibly brave. And I think what the miniseries was able to do with his character was he was the first one to really actually retaliate against the bullies. So there are many scenes where he like pours soda on them in the theater, or like calls them names. He's the one that he actually stands up for himself, where the others are a little more timid to begin with. But I think it's good that they kind of subdue that in the film version, because while it is all of them together, it's mostly focusing on Bill and Beverly and Ben. I think those three are the leads, essentially.
Yeah, there's two members of the Losers Club that I feel like really get short shrifted here, and that is Chosen Jacobs as Mike and Wyatt Olaf as Stanley Uris.
Well, he gets shortchanged in the miniseries too.
Yeah. And in the second part 2.
Well, he got really shortchanged in that one.
He doesn't have much time in there.
But these two characters for me were disappointments. I was, for the most part, annoyed by Stanley. Decent performance, but I don't know. And Chosen Jacobs, you kind of forget about him, or Mike, you forget about him until they reinsert him into the plot later on, which I thought he should have been with them in the group earlier on in this. Like, they take too long to catch up with him.
I think that is something that would have benefited to have him earlier. I think they were trying to be kind of accurate to the story at that point, because it was kind of like they had formed this group first, and then Mike kind of stumbles in. Yeah. Somewhere in the middle.
Literally.
I would have liked if it would have worked better, though, and I'm not a director, so maybe it wouldn't have. But I almost want to say it would have been better if they held off his opening scene where he's dealing with the bolts and the sheep and all that stuff. Maybe pushed that a little more towards the middle of the movie, so we're kind of like, he's like the late addition to the Losers Club, but it makes sense that he is. Because they have that scene fairly early on in the movie where you're introduced to Mike, It's like, oh.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
But who knows? I don't know.
I can agree with that. I mean, I found no real issues with any of this, but I can agree. I can see your point.
So I think the big thing we haven't really touched on that is also affected by this is the way they told this story.
Yes.
It is going completely different than the book, where they're trying to focus on the childhood in the first part and then the adults in the second, whereas the book starts with the adults and then kind of mixes them. Is that right, Arena?
So think of it kind of like you're watching Lost, where they do a lot of flashing back and then flashing to the present, but they don't quite answer all the questions yet, So you're getting little snippets of everything. Whereas I caught your joke there, but they do give you the answers at the end of the book. But this, I think, is better than trying to do that, especially if they're putting it into 2 parts, because it is a huge novel, so you kind of have to break it up. As far
What's a huge novel?
It.
As far as the flow of storytelling, I think they did this really well, focusing on the childhood first, and then moving on to the grand finale as adults.
Yeah.
So how did
no.
the book explore the adults, like the parents, because in this, with such a focus on the children, we do have some tensions with some of their parents.
Yeah.
But I feel like they're kind of short-shrifted a little bit on, I guess, screen time, because and this is maybe me looking too far into what a horror is versus a thriller, and there's some, thematic exploration of all that stuff. But, if they're trying to make a overall statement on some kind of philosophical whatever,
Yeah.
the adults themselves could have used a little bit more development, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And, they do have that eye gleam a little bit that, reflects on their flaws and, evil, so to speak. But
I was kind of thinking about this actually, and I think we were talking, or we were texting about like the themes or whatever. I misinterpreted your text and I laid out what I thought the themes of it were. But I was thinking about this, and everything in it that is not the kids is like this rotted, corroded, evil, perverted version of, life.
Yeah.
Except for the kids. And I think that is just to emphasize innocence, I guess.
right.
Like, everything else has just progressed into, or everything is tainted except for them.
Right.
And this is a very literal coming of age, loss of innocence type story. And I think that's why all of the parents in this are just like dirty, gross people. Like, it's like, it's just really trying to hammer home.
It hit, and I wanted to follow them on that train of thought, but all the parents were like almost cardboard cutouts, playing this zombie role, two-dimensional, like almost like the adults in Charlie Brown. They're just like there in the background. Exactly. So they're there, as a vehicle for saying, the adulthood is evil, or they're hiding this stuff, but they're like almost zombies or whatever in this overall play. Like Stanley's dad, the rabbi, I mean, why does he have this painting in his office? Like,
I know.
Explore any of this stuff? Like, I don't know.
Also, why has no one moved away from Derry if they have this like insane amount of kids that go missing, where they literally just post up these posters of the missing kid, and then now another kid's missing. Let's post the next poster on top of that one.
Didn't they say at some point that the was it homicide, or just like the rate of which people go missing is 4 times higher than the national average?
6 times.
Well, 6 times, and most of those are children. And you're like, maybe you shouldn't bring your kids there.
So I don't quite remember this fully, but I thought I remembered something about whenever you leave the town, you kind of forget about that kind of stuff.
So, if you're going to explain the town, there's this aspect about it where a lot of horrible things happen, and people just kind of, it's like a poisoned environment, and they're not fully aware of everything that goes on, but there is something wrong with the place. And if you're outside of it, you can't actually remember it or what happened, essentially. So I think they're trying to portray that. I would say that while they're trying to do that, some of the acting is a little wooden. I think particularly Bill's father. I didn't really like that scene that much, because I'm like, it just
that series of tubes.
Yeah. I was like, this scene doesn't really, like, I don't really feel what's happening or his motives for yelling, or I would understand the motive, but the way it's being played out is very odd to me, and not in an effective way.
We see all this relationship between the kids themselves, but the interplay of, Bill and his parents, and his father alludes to, don't let your mother see this, it would destroy her, all this stuff.
Yeah.
We never see that, like the tension between him, coping with Georgie's disappearance or death, against the adults versus, the support of his friends who always catch themselves before they say dead and then say disappeared, use the euphemism to spare his feelings. We never developed that. And again, I think that's maybe just, horror movie doesn't want to dig too deep in things. They're primarily to scare you, especially with supernatural stuff. It's not going to delve into the psyche of the human.
Yeah.
Although this, did a little bit more than maybe more other horror movies.
I think they're, again, trying to just create a barrier between the children and the adults. Like, you also see this with, like, you get a little glimpse of this with the scene where they're at the kissing bridge, and the bully is, cutting him up, essentially. And he calls out for help to that car passing by. It's two old people, and they just look and move on. Yeah. And then he sees, the balloon in the back seat. And so essentially, I think that's supposed to give you an example of how Pennywise has kind of infiltrated even the people in the society.
Or how can Beverly's dad see all the blood covering every inch of the walls in the bathroom?
Exactly. So they're the only ones that can see there's something wrong. And I think that's to preserve the fact that they're a group together, and they can kind of through their innocence see what's wrong with the place,
Yeah.
Maybe people are just crabby in Maine.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say at first that I thought maybe, the adults weren't portrayed as well as they should be, but thinking about it now, I almost think it's perfect that they didn't give them any focus and just portrayed them as the toxicity that is this city. They can never find the time of day with the adults. The adults aren't willing to help them. They forget about the kids going missing.
I do think it enhances the scares of this movie, knowing that no adult or older person is reliable or will help you.
They can't help you.
They're also threats.
I mean, think about the library scene with Ben when he's researching, and while you're in the background while he's researching, you see that old lady librarian standing there with a creepy smile watching him.
Yeah, this is a good transition, actually, because I want to talk about...
Ben just gets carved up, and they're like, no, let's not tell any adults. Just patch it up ourselves, and then go swimming in the dirty water right after.
Yep. Oh, yeah, he definitely got some sort of disease from that. But this is a good transition into kind of the meat of this story, or at least the mid portion, second act. Let's just call it that.
Right.
Where we just kind of get a series of scares. The group is kind of split up, and each individual kid has their encounter with Pennywise.
Right.
There's some of the best stuff in this movie throughout this, but I also think this is where the movie kind of has structural issues. I think there are too many of these one-off scares bunched together, one after the other, and it almost is like, why aren't these kids communicating about what they just saw? Like, they wait for like 6 or 7 of these kids to have encounters with it before they all say like, oh yeah, I saw it earlier. It's like, each of these kids had this insanely traumatizing experience that was like right before their eyes. It was really there.
There is something about kids, and like when it's something beyond, something supernatural, it's hard to even like comprehend. Did that happen?
Dude, have you ever followed a trail of eggs down into a basement and had a beheaded, burned body chase after you through the library?
I'm gonna defend the movie again in this case and say that, first of all, those visions were over the course of a day or two. Each of them had their visions either the first day or the second day, and they probably had a lot of emotional stuff going on, so they were thinking, okay, can I trust them to, like, say this?
Well, and maybe they did tell each other.
I think
they did.
And that's the fix I want to see to this. I want to see one of those kids running to the other one saying, like, I just saw this. And then them being like, no, you didn't. That's stupid. No way you didn't see that. Like, there's no scene like that where it's like, they're telling each other about what they saw.
No, they did.
We wait until that. I'm pretty sure we wait until the scene where they're all watching the projector video together, and all the images are flashing, and they all see it together, and that's the moment where it's like,
I think just to answer that too, it's I also agree but disagree at the same time, and I think it would make sense to at least have one of the kids react that way, but as we see with Stan, there's an aspect of denial where they don't want that to be real.
Yeah.
And so they just kind of, you've had those moments where like you just don't want to look
Yeah.
because you want to pretend that
You didn't
it
see
didn't
that.
happen.
Like, no,
Like,
that
you
didn't
didn't
happen.
see that.
Nothing
You know, like
happened.
everything's fine. I'll just move on, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's happening here. And especially in Stan's case, Stan really doesn't want to see it, but the rest sort of come to terms because they realize others have seen it too.
What it struck me as, though, and this is where I flip back to the positive, I give it a pass. Like, this is, I don't think this is a net negative thing, because this was like the director or the creators behind this movie were like, we have so many good ideas for how we can portray it to these kids, and we want to like throw them all in there.
Right.
And they were like, okay, how can we throw all these cool ideas that we have in the, we split up the kids and they all have their various it scares or Pennywise scares.
That is actually in the book, though.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Good. That's actually good. That's good to know. But I do think each one of these sequences is very well executed. I'm scared throughout all of them. I'm like, oh, that was a very creative way of portraying that kid's utmost fear.
Right.
I think they're all good, and I do think the plot manages to coalesce in the end, and it's justified.
Yeah.
I just thought it was like, okay, this is a lot of... It's like, it became predictable.
Yeah,
after
it's
the
like,
first two
what's
scares.
gonna happen
where I'm,
now?
I'm like,
But,
I saw this. I saw this kid get scared. I saw this kid get scared.
Although-
yep, I guess I'm gonna
The
now
point
see.
that's not the point of
Your tolerance
it's-
for horror is higher than maybe David or mine.
Agreed.
Yeah,
Reese is
Maybe.
just like, man, I'm scary.
But I think the point of, well, first let's break down like each of their characters individually and talk about how they had their scare. So we have, like Irina mentioned, Stan, and he kind of bottles it up, doesn't want to believe it. He's a religious guy too.
Well,
He's
he was
Jewish,
at church and he saw the lady with the flute. That was terrifying.
Now you also have to keep in mind these
Temple,
kids are
get it right.
these kids are extremely young, and they probably don't want to show other people that they're afraid of certain things, or that they just had an imagination thing that would make someone think you're crazy.
I don't
right?
think we need to really break down why they didn't tell each
Well,
other
no,
anymore.
the point I'm making is I don't think that this just barely passes. I think it's in its favor as a positive thing.
I didn't say it barely passed. I think I think it's a net positive, and I enjoyed it. I just thought like that was it was the one point in the movie where I could see like the machinery behind the filmmaking, where I was like, I could see the mechanism behind the facade.
well, it's more
Where it
of
was
the
like-
story itself rather than the filmmaking.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and that's
but-
all. I think I think it's successful.
Yeah, I was just saying the point was to show what their fears are, and they were hit at their home, and they would be hit at their home while they're alone.
Okay, well then let me level with you then. Maybe there could have been a more economic way of showing this. Like maybe just they could have condensed it slightly. Because I feel like the movie kind of loses a bit of its forward momentum when everyone's split up. The plot does not progress. It's just a sequence one after the other of the kids being scared about it in their various encounters with Pennywise.
I think that's what you're supposed to do in this, though.
I know,
like-
but there's like the thing is there's like 7 losers. Like that's
I don't know.
that's a lot.
Look, man, blame Stephen King. That's you blame him on that
I don't
one.
know. This to me was character building in each character. It might not have pushed well, I actually think it does push the plot forward, but it might not have increased progression towards their end goal. However, it was to demonstrate each of their individual characters, what hurts them.
No, I got that.
And,
I got that.
I really liked that about this movie.
Yeah, I got that. Anyway, to put a more positive spin on it, before we move on, what was your favorite kind of scare moment throughout this? What do you think was the best one of the bunch?
Well, are we talking about scary or
just
most
from
creative?
an altogether creative scare, like fully conceived
Or I guess
scare sequence?
whichever really stood out to you if you're not much into horror.
Yeah.
all of
So-
them.
Okay, I thought this to myself. So Dave and I were texting during this movie, and the bathroom scene was like, what the did I just see?
He messaged
that
me
just
and
hit me out
he
of
literally
nowhere.
said, "What the?" And I was like, "Bathroom scene, bathroom scene."
Yeah. And then later on the projector, I was like, okay, I'm still still recovering from the last one. But, what really sunk in deepest for me, interestingly enough, was Billy going to the basement.
Me
The
too.
float basement.
Me too.
And it floats, with Georgie appearing and then the little scatter.
Oh, yeah.
That's what was like subtly on like a deep level, creepy.
The way they're both saying, you'll float too at the same time in unison, and then Pennywise just basically shoves Georgie underwater and just does that very fast motion, sped up movement towards him.
Yeah. Well, there's that aspect where he has his hand on Georgie, like he's using him as a puppet.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what he does, with all these dead kids, is that he uses them as puppets. He speaks through them.
I think the reason that this scene specifically is scary, and any scene with Georgie and Billy together, is because it's not as abstract as some of the other ones. Those other ones are creepy and scary, but you can sort of detach yourself enough where it's scary and you can move on. But that one is touching on a family member dying.
Yeah.
Somebody
it has the emotional
manipulating
investments at the
Right.
root of it.
Yeah.
So this is actually really reflective on the characters that you have here, because up till now, the only ones with really traumatic backgrounds are Beverly and Bill. Yeah. And the rest of them, Ben, he's been bullied, but he's kind of, I think in the books, his father died at war or something, and so he has a little bit of a traumatic background.
Mike definitely
That's the
has
next one I was going to say.
a traumatic backstory.
He does too.
And I also think that his nightmare's pretty intense too. He what was it?
He sees his family that's burning
he
behind
starts hearing this banging
Mike
on the
does too.
door behind him.
That's right. I completely forgot about him. We were just talking about
he
that.
starts he hears the banging on a door behind him, and he looks back, sees smoke coming out of it, and people kind of screaming.
So
hands start coming out, and
it's
burning.
representative
Again,
of his family dying.
Yes.
The point of Pennywise is he's trying to find what will shake them at their core. And for some of them, it's easier because, Eddie is afraid of getting sick because of his mother. And he basically all Pennywise has to do is throw a leper in his face. Mm-hmm. And then you have Richie, who's just afraid of clowns. So that's super easy.
Yep. Same with Stan.
Yeah, Stan, he's afraid of that picture. Okay, just, embody that picture. But for Beverly, you have this whole room full of blood because there's this tension between her and her father, where as she's coming into womanhood, he's basically giving her this very unwanted attention. Yeah. And especially to her hair. She cuts off all her hair, and her hair is used to pull her back into the sink.
Yep.
And so, the blood represents her period, essentially. This is womanhood creeping up on her.
I want to ask you something. Touching back on the parents, do you think the way they're portrayed is how it is just how it's seen through the child's eyes, or is that a literal that's actually what they're doing?
Oh, that is a good question.
It's a good question because there isn't really that answer in the book for this film. Because in the book, all the adults are relatively normal. Obviously Beverly's father is messed up. He's just kind of abusive. They're abusive people, but the rest of them are pretty much acting normal. There are normal relationships between the kids. But in this, they take
shooting
a
gun at your child's feet is also not normal.
No. But in the book, the bully's father is definitely abusive. There's a lot of abuse, but the rest of them don't have these particularly unusual relationships with adults.
Mm. Yeah, I just found it interesting. I almost thought the parents were too extreme. Yeah. And I was wondering if that's just them.
It was a style choice for the film.
It feels like that was intentional.
Yeah.
So Noah, do you want to continue with that story there?
Of course. So we just picked up off of the part where they have their nightmare. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they realize everything is coming from the center of town, which is the abandoned house. So after this revelation, the group takes a closer look at the sewers and find they all lead to one point, a stone well under an abandoned house. Billy decides to confront it, and the others follow. They enter the house and are shown their greatest fears. Upon escaping the house, morale in the Losers Club is broken, and there are fisticuffs. After going their separate ways, Beverly is taken by it, and the boys must band together again and defeat the evil being. All of them go to the abandoned house. Mike kills a guy, and they descend.
Mike killed a guy.
There, all of them face their greatest fears and conquer them. Now it's a party, and they're all lining up to give Pennywise the business. But the creature slinks away, escaping deeper underground as he cackles in sequel. The group seals the deal with blood, promising to return should it come back. Oh, and they kiss at the end.
Not all of them, just one.
Just one, yeah.
All right,
Unlike the
so
book.
Exactly.
so all of the Losers Club are believers now. So they head to face it at that creepy old house where the leper assaulted Eric.
Previously the old well house, I believe.
Yeah. So the Losers Club are united in their belief of Pennywise here, and they all kind of convene at this creepy house where Eric was assaulted by the leper version of Pennywise. So let's talk about this kind of house of horrors and the big showcase or big coming out party of Pennywise, played by Bill Skarsgård. This is kind of like, we've seen him in various forms, but this is like, yeah, this is the big, this is Pennywise. Here I am.
Yeah.
The
So-
big
Hear me
debut.
roar.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. I kind of liked this whole scene because it shows, you know, who's really willing to face their fears
Yeah.
and go in even if they don't want to.
Yeah. I love the kind of big coming out party of Pennywise, the fridge scene where it's the contortionist scene almost, where he's
Twisting around.
twisted up into that little fridge and he comes out. It was a perfect example of how you combine practical with CGI, because apparently a lot of it was actually Bill Skarsgård, and then they kind of replaced his body with a CGI kind of body that contorts in ways that are not possible.
Right.
I'm pretty sure he's a superhuman for
Yeah.
this role.
But yeah, that was pretty great. It was cool seeing like the fully realized Pennywise show his face.
And that was the first scene that they filmed with the kids, with the clown.
Yeah.
That's the very first scene. Gosh.
Yeah.
That was Skarsgård and Eddie. That was like that's the first time they even saw each other.
The
which is
director
crazy.
intentionally kept him away from the kids, or like especially him in makeup and the full outfit, just because he wanted that reaction to be so authentic, you know? So he chose a good point to hold that off.
It is
too.
so funny hearing them talk about it too. They were terrified. They actually were scared of him when he was in makeup, and because he kind of goes method, he goes 110%.
Yeah.
I
He's
think-
drooling on the kids.
exactly. What I can't remember the kid, the
Grazer?
actor. No, not Grazer.
The
right?
hypochondriac.
You're talking about
Yeah,
Eddie,
Jack
right?
Dylan Grazer. That's him.
Well, never mind.
Yeah.
Jack Dylan Grazer. Yeah, he was explaining how he got his saliva on his mouth and he was licking it off his own lips, and he didn't realize that it was Skarsgård. It was so gross.
Here's one of my things with these movies, and I've seen the second one. This movie uses Bill Skarsgård in the perfect way.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, there's CGI assistance here and there, but it is mostly Bill Skarsgård's performance. I think this movie is lesser when it, kind of dilutes his performance with the use of special effects.
I agree.
Like
and
when
that-
they stab him in the head and they kind of have to.
Yeah, and this movie's, it's still fine. And I'm maybe kind of bleeding over into my thoughts on the second one, which is maybe less utilizes Bill Skarsgård. But this movie has it really is a nice balance of his performance and the effects team really taking it to that next level. But in a calculated way. Like, I never think they
Yeah.
go overboard in any of these scenes.
Right.
It's just enough creepy.
And if you extrapolate that to a broad sense of horror, at least for me, it's easier to kind of bat away anything that's just overly supernatural. It's like, okay, that's obviously fake, and that's where
Right.
something that's thriller deals with the inner demons of humanity. Like, okay, that's actually kind of creepy because this is potentially possible or real. And so obviously all the teeth is not real, but you know, they reestablish the scene once they get into the house. They have that flyer that's the future, or you know, the missing child poster for Richie.
Right.
It's like, oh, okay. Because up until now, I'm still at the back of my mind. I know, like, there's this supernatural aspect of it, like it's still a monster, but it's like, is one of the parents, you know, a serial killer? Or is this still some kind of fishy thing going on, you know, still like in the mundane, you know, human kind of thing? Or is this all supernatural? Because I don't know the story, the background, or anything like that. So at the back of my mind, I'm still working that out. So they still kind of tease that. And now this kind of brings me in, okay, yeah, this is just full on monster, kind of crazy, spooky, whatever. But
supernatural.
Like, yeah, supernatural is the best word to use. But like Reese said, they toe the line well enough that it's like not over the top where you easily dismiss it because it's obviously fake and unrealistic. Right. It still kind of hits home because it's practical.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the coolest things about this is that most horror movies, when they decide to do a supernatural aspect of it, they don't really connect it to any sort of symbolic thing, or it's not usually important in some way. It's just the creature's a creature and it's doing bad.
Right.
But in this one, I love how it's really about the kids overcoming their fear and having to defeat the creature. So the creature is really not... It's almost like it doesn't exist except for the fact that it's embodied by what they fear and what the people in the town fear.
It kind of feeds and thrives on it.
And
it's a parasite, if you will.
And towards the end, when they conquer it, it's made weak by the fact that they're not scared of it anymore.
Yeah, so I think we're all in agreement that Bill Skarsgård knocks it out of the park here as Pennywise. This was one of, again, I alluded to this earlier in the episode, at the beginning actually, where I was not sold on the look of Pennywise, but then just seeing Skarsgård's performance, he totally sold the look. It was like, yep, I'm totally on board with this version of Pennywise, and I actually think it's better than the Tim Curry version. I know there's a lot of people that are very fond of that one. I know it's iconic, but let's face it, guys, this is better.
I agree.
Not only is it
Tim
better,
Curry does great.
Oh yeah, Tim Curry as an actor, he does phenomenal. But I think the makeup, the artistry of it makes more sense in this one too, because the character is basing his portrayal of Pennywise off of an actual clown from probably somewhere in the 1800s. Irina, is that something like that?
I think it was modeled after a real clown. Like in the book, this creature was pulling that image from an actual clown that existed.
It wasn't just any clown, though.
It was Pennywise.
No. I mean, literally. I thought I remembered it being based on a clown serial killer.
No. Okay,
so you're talking about real life.
Yeah,
that's
IRL.
John Wayne Gacy.
Yeah. And that sort of is true. But within the story, within the Stephen King universe, this entity that is embodying Pennywise modeled it after an actual clown that existed before.
And the reason you got the idea of the serial killer is because when Stephen King was writing this, John Wayne Gacy was doing this. It was in the headlines. He was actually still at large, I believe, when he was writing it. So that's the inspiration for the story itself. But in the story, the clown's based off of a clown in the 1800s.
Going back to this portrayal of Pennywise, I think he does an exceptional job of portraying something that is more entity than human.
And drooling.
Yeah.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
and drooling. But
the eye split.
There's this kind of animal quality about him where it's like you can tell it's imitating a human, or at least what it thinks a human is, but it can't help but express that animal instinct at the same time.
Bloodlust.
Yeah. It's interesting.
I love that aspect of it too, and that's straight from the books, isn't it?
Yeah. It's kind of like I think when you read a Stephen King book, nothing is as out in the open as they like to portray it in the film. It's a little more subtle. Like you kind of see him pop up in flashes here and there. It's a super creepy book. I would recommend reading it because it has that kind of get under your skin feeling.
Goosebumps.
Yeah. Speaking of goosebumps, this is the only movie that you can classify as horror that has actually given me chills, but not in the fact that I'm scared, but in the way that I'm just really impressed.
Oh, yeah.
So, by the way, I know you touched on this a little bit, Noah. The eye splitting and the lip drooling. This is a Skarsgård thing. Like he has this thing he did since childhood where he can put his his bottom lip out, and it looked almost like a prosthetic when you watch it. It's so bulbous, but he did that on camera as a human. You know?
The Conan show, he demonstrated it.
Yeah, and so he was able to pull that in the movie. He can also make one of his eyes go out like a chameleon.
I know a couple people that do that.
That's so creepy.
It definitely works.
Wait, look.
This is really good for audio.
You're not doing it.
Oh yeah, he's doing it.
I'm straight up doing
he's doing it.
A little bit, yeah.
Not as much as he's doing it because I don't want to mess with my eyes.
All right, for those listening, Noah is doing his best Pennywise impression.
It's pretty good.
It's pretty good. Okay, so let's kind of move on. Bev gets kidnapped by Pennywise after she takes out her father with the lid of a toilet.
He really didn't see that coming. Oh, the toilet does not have a lid.
Let's go check.
Look, I remember when I first saw this, and I'm sure a lot of people thought this. She snuck out the window. There was a window behind the curtain in the bathroom. He kind of had like blinders on. He was ready to just get her.
No, that's
I didn't even look to the toilet.
I'm just making a joke.
Yeah,
But
it doesn't bother me.
you know,
Yeah.
it
So
didn't bother me either.
she clobbered him, and everyone cheered. Yay, she killed her dad, because we all hated him.
He wasn't dead though.
But then this kind of leads into the finale where all of the Losers Club kind of bands together and they head into the sewers. Meanwhile, Henry decides to finally take the plunge and kill his dad after being influenced by Pennywise. And he is also on pursuit to take out the Losers Club. He heads all into the sewers as well.
He's lost it. Something snapped.
Yeah. So he's taken out by Mike plunges down into the sewer drain, and the Losers Club makes their way to this towering pyre of just all this junk and kids kind of floating in the air. They're floating.
That
was a cool image, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
to finally see that.
Yeah, they find Bev, and through a kiss with why am I so bad at names and clutch moments? Yeah, through a kiss with Ben, she is kind of brought back into the world. She's conscious, and we have our final confrontation with Pennywise, where the kids finally face their fears, and Pennywise is diminished blow by blow.
A weird little thing I noticed upon rewatching this film, as far as the kiss that revives Beverly, there earlier when it's in her room and she first gets the postcard from Ben, the camera first is resting on I think her desk or something, or a piano, and she has a copy of the book The Frog Prince up there, which, a kiss basically turns the frog into a prince.
True love's kiss.
I think this also ties into the magic of belief, where, Ben just was convinced so much that like kissing would revive her, that is what basically broke it.
Oh, it's a Disney movie.
Yeah, so it's just cute.
Little Rascals in the life car.
Oh yeah.
Alfalfa?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I could just see it now.
Yep.
No.
I'm so glad that kind of Ben comes in at all these clutch moments.
Oh, yeah.
To, he's
Ben
not
is a sweetheart.
He's not gonna bully his way and get the girl. He's respectful.
I know.
But in
so
these
sweet.
moments where it counts, he really comes through as a hero and doesn't really ask for anything in return.
Love when he goes into rage mode, like when Henry basically disses Bev and he just like flings the rock at his head.
Yes, yeah, that was so good. There's one particular moment that is just one of my favorite Pennywise points, and it's whenever he's taken her Beverly down to where they all float in the
Yeah.
storm, and she's like looking around the scenery, and the circus music starts playing,
yeah.
and then he's like dancing and like staring.
Such a good scene. Then
forward.
he bounds out.
Comedy horror right there.
That was it. It's an entrancing scene.
It is.
Just
Yeah.
watching
Well,
it.
the camera work, I mean, and they do this quite a few times with Pennywise, that they center, the motion on his eyes. Everything
Right.
else is shaking, and it like everything is still is like his eyes and central face.
Yeah.
Right.
So it was a really creative and interesting piece of camera work that landed.
Yeah.
Yes.
Isn't that a Stanley Kubrick thing? Like he had a lot to do with focusing on the eyes and
It could
showing
be.
off.
There was some Kubrick-esque, a lot of central framing, and then the shadows moving were really well done as well. And that's another thing visually that we haven't touched on a whole lot. Visually, everything was all the subtlety and the theme or the style like contributed to the overall atmosphere.
Yeah.
Other than just what you see, without
Yeah, I
being
agree.
cheesy.
Yeah. This has a great atmosphere.
That's
Great aesthetic.
Yeah.
The visual style is on point. Love the production design. Yeah, from that standpoint, this movie is aces.
Also, the music. The music is a wonderful
Good old
addition.
Benny Wallfish.
Benjamin
Yeah.
Wallfish, yeah.
Music
Yeah.
is so good.
Yeah, it's excellent. So what do you think those, and maybe you know this, Irina, maybe not, but when Bev is kind of made a floater, let's just say that.
While they are in the
Total talk
sewers.
here, we're taking a plunge.
She's a floater in the sewer.
Yeah.
When she sees those three bright orbs in his throat,
yeah.
when he opens his mouth, what is this? Is he some sort of cosmic being? Is this like,
It
what
sort
is
of
he?
is. Like, I think if you... I haven't looked too much into it, so David, if you have an answer, you
I
can
have
go
it up.
ahead.
I've been holding on to this for a
But
while.
All right, this is
I
David's
seem to remember that Stephen King has had this whole idea from the beginning, and not a lot of people know this, but all his books overlap in the same. They're in the same universe, and I think Pennywise, kind of similar to a lot of J.R.R. Tolkien's work, is just one of these grand evil villains. I don't know which one he was equated to, if it was like Sauron or under Sauron, but it's kind of like at that level,
I can
You can
imagine
go ahead.
Sauron being the right one because
Yeah.
Melkor is obviously the higher.
Right.
Glad
level
we were able
there.
to get Lord of the Rings into this.
I know.
Yeah, we had-
There you
I'm
go.
sorry.
Hey,
I'm sorry.
It's the Silmarillion.
Hey, it's all Lord of the Rings to me, man.
So go ahead with what you
I was
found.
just going to say what he actually is, which is something I feel like we should let the audience know. The character, is an ancient cosmic evil which
was right.
preys upon the children of Derry, and he comes out every 27 years. So he is cosmic. He is evil. And I was watching some not behind the scenes, just kind of like some deep dives on the Stephen King breakdown of this, and the whole thing is like trippy. This is one of the more trippier ones.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of his evil beings are kind of rooted on Earth.
Right.
This one is like out there. It is
This is one of the few ones that kind of seems Lovecraftian to me.
Yeah.
exactly. It's
Oh,
ancient
definitely.
alien. It's like it's out there, and it is beyond almost anything in the
Right.
universe. And there's only like one other thing that is up to its level, and it's like this giant space turtle.
Well, it's interesting. So, yeah, it's an alien that crash lands on an asteroid or something, and then just kind of lays dormant until, humans come around. But, yeah, the antithesis, so to speak, to it, or Pennywise, or I guess it, is, I forget the name, but it is a turtle. And in this movie, there are a few references to turtles, and they're always at the happy kind of moments. You have the Lego turtle in Georgie's room, remembering
Oh, yeah.
they see a turtle when they're all having fun in the the
lake.
Quarry, the water. I think there's another one, but I forget at this time. But
Yeah, I caught on to the one when they were playing in the water in the quarry or whatever, and I just now realized, I was like, oh yeah, there's a turtle. That's its evil enemy. Or not evil. He's like the antithesis, as you said.
Interesting. So there's more to that than I thought.
It's just so funny because the turtle itself, as I learned, had some indigestion and burped up to the earth. That's kind of
It happens.
That's exactly that's kind of Stephen King's breakdown of how Earth happened, and then it sees the turtle as the only thing close to its equivalent in power.
These were the cocaine days, right? These are
I
the
was about to say
days.
cocaine, not even once.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you?
If you
just
wanna-
trying to say it is kind of crazy. I'm having a hard time
Yeah. If you
describing a
wanna
turtle
see
and a
some
cosmic
of-
alien.
Stephen King's work during like those days, watch Maximum Overdrive. Apparently he was just like out of his mind when he was directing that.
Yeah, I think it sounds kind of cool though. I mean,
It
it's
is very-
weird. It's weird.
It's
but
Lovecraftian, as Reese put it.
I'm not in love with the weird turtle thing, but it is cool to have it being the one seeing, this is
Yeah.
the only thing that counters me, so I'm gonna infest that.
It's very comic booky.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It is,
It
yeah.
is.
All right, so back on track. They defeat Pennywise. They've overcome their fears. Essentially, another theme of this movie is like kind of facing your fears. What do y'all think about the final battle? Are y'all satisfied?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Like I love
not entertained.
It's honest. I was entertained. I love the finale of this movie.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I thought so too. I was wondering what the significance of his skin kind of flaking off and floating. Like what was that about?
Artistic license.
Like was that just to look cool, or was there some meaning
There's
behind him
gotta
kind of
be a meaning.
flaking away? Like
I mean,
Well,
it was
there's always-
obviously
Go ahead.
like he gets away. Like it's uncertain if he's actually defeated 100% or
Yeah.
not. So there's that open-endedness. If you don't know the actual source material, they could have a sequel. Like he comes
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
But I guess it was the rejection of fear, and I don't know. Maybe it was since he predates on fear, and I think Bill says, you're the one that's afraid now. So almost like he can't control when he consumes fear, so he's like kind of consuming himself from his own fear. I don't
that
know.
Could make sense.
Oh,
That could
Never
make
thought
sense.
about that.
I think
Interesting.
as far as like everything flaking away, it is a stylistic choice, but it's kind of similar to when you see blood written on the wall, all the drops are going up, so the laws of gravity don't apply. It does kind of remind me of like, how you burn paper and it just kind of like lifts up,
Yeah.
like all the residue of it just lifts.
Yeah.
So it's I think it more just visually embodies the fact that he is not of this world. It's something
Yeah.
other. So
I
This actually took place during Endgame, and this is part of the MCU.
yeah, there you go.
he just got blipped.
Blipped. Good timing.
I do want to say I think the best moment of acting for Jaden Lieber, however you say his name, as Bill is this moment where he's confronted with Pennywise's version of Georgie, where he knows it's Pennywise, but he takes this moment to talk to Georgie just as
Therapeutic almost.
His own
Yeah,
to
coping.
get that
Yeah.
closure.
for catharsis, honestly. And then he puts the bolt in his head.
Oh, so good.
And I was
Gosh.
like, yeah, that was okay. That was a good moment. It was really hard to watch, but it was well executed.
Yeah.
That's what needed to happen in that moment. I was glad Bill was smart.
Yeah.
I don't think I could have done that if I was in his shoes. Even if I knew it was Pennywise, that would be hard.
Yeah.
Well, I think you might have been able to do
Maybe.
it. Think about you seeing a kid that has been gone for about a year.
It's a
He's
family
missing an
member.
arm. You're down way in the sewers.
I know. Look, it's easy to say that I would do it because I feel like I could.
Yeah.
But when it's a family member and it's someone you love
be
that
hard.
deeply, I can tell
Yeah.
that there's something that would hold me back.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
And then he
all
went
right.
on to become Woody Harrelson's father.
Yeah.
A serial killer?
There was one thing I wanted to say that's really cool, or how words, hello, about Pennywise, and I feel like this has the better portrayal of him versus
Of Pennywise.
of Pennywise versus the original, or not the original. I mean,
The Tim Curry version.
Yeah, the Tim Curry version, and it's not in the acting or anything like that, but in just kind of what they are. This one portrays him not even as a physical entity, really, but just kind of fear incarnate, and the less they fear, the smaller he is. And I think it's really cool to have an entity be almost liquid like that.
Yeah.
Or non-physical, I guess.
I agree. I as I've alluded to, or as I've said before, I do think this is the stronger portrayal of the character of Pennywise, not just from a performance standpoint, but also from a symbolic standpoint.
Yes.
Your question real quick. We kind of glanced over it, but I thought it was significant. But I want others' opinion because I've seen some things where people said that Henry kind of coming in at the last minute was distracting. How do you feel about this confrontation with Henry? And how does it compare to the original book?
The confrontation with Henry there.
Well, Henry basically like killing his
Henry
dad
and
and then
Mike.
going on this murderous rampage and
Right.
him.
I think it was in the book, his character is given more time and more of a build up, and so it comes together in a way in the book that makes more sense. In the film version, it almost felt like they had to have that in as a significant moment, but they weren't really able, because they're limited on time, to build up to that in the same way. I didn't find it personally distracting because in this whole movie, I felt, yes, Pennywise is a threat, but everyone else is almost like an equal threat. I felt just as concerned for the kids when the bullies were involved.
The bullies
as
were
I
scary
was
in
when,
this. Yeah.
it was involved. So for me, it made sense and it was fine. But I can see how someone might find that distracting or disappointing if they had read the book.
Yeah.
In my opinion, it could have been a good tool to open up a little bit more of, since he's not an adult, but he's still kind of symbolic of the rot, to use Reese's word, of the town, because it really kind of sunk home, and this may be implicit or I don't know, but where he says, if only he's talking to Mike about his house burning down, and then it kind of clicked as like, was that arson? Because like a kind of a race thing.
Right.
And then that kind of still speaks to the culture of the town. That still, it made me want more of that background of the rest of the town, the sickness, the rot. But then that would have been more powerful when we have that confrontation right before they go down the well.
Right.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's close out the story. We have the Losers Club at the end making their kind of blood pact. If It/Pennywise shows up again, they will all get back together to take him down. What did y'all think about the final moments in this movie? Bev and Ben and Bill. Did I get all those names right? Sure, I think I did. Mm-hmm. The resolving of that love triangle, the kiss, all this stuff. What'd y'all think?
This is I just felt kind of bad for Ben, because he clearly was waiting around to try and have a moment with Beverly, but Bill wasn't moving, and
yeah, he had to leave. And sort of the way that the actor who portrayed Ben, I'm so bad with these actors' names, was describing his own character was that
Jeremy Ray Taylor. Sorry,
Jeremy Ray Taylor. Yeah, they had to write letters to their future selves for the second chapter, and he was describing how his love for Beverly was unwavering. He never had any animosity towards Bill, which I think they did a good job of showing on screen.
Which is great, yeah.
It was more like he respects Bill and likes Bill, but it's kind of an unfortunate situation of him recognizing that they both like him, or both like Beverly.
Well, it's almost like him respecting Beverly's wish to be with Bill instead of...
His love for her is unwavering regardless of where she goes.
Yeah. I think this was a smart choice over the book's orgy scene.
We had to talk about it, didn't we?
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be brought up if you're comparing it to the book.
I had forgotten.
Yeah, the book notoriously, the kids have an orgy, and that's literally how it is.
Yeah.
Well, it's basically like Bev has to do it, like all of them, for them to escape.
Right.
Yeah.
Wait, why?
And they're, 11, 13 or something?
Yeah, it's
Cocaine
weird.
is a hell of a drug.
So I remember I was talking to someone once, and there was an interview with Stephen King where they were asking him about that scene, and they're like, so, like, why? You know? And
just why?
he said, like, well, you remember being a kid, and they're like, we never did anything like that. And he was like, huh, I guess kids have changed these days. And
It's like cocaine's a hell of a drug.
Maybe it was just you.
Stephen had a weird childhood. Where did Stephen King grow up?
Maine.
Yeah, this is basically his hometown.
Yeah.
Everything is set in Maine.
Yeah.
Or maybe just things are weird in Maine, and that's why we never know that much about it.
Maine is a weird city.
This movie turned a really potentially weird and disturbing moment into a melancholy, weirdly nostalgic.
Right.
The music is great. Like, I really like how they just kind of hand this shard of glass to each other.
Right.
Hand it to the next one. Hold hands. It's blood pact. It's almost sweet. It's I don't know. I thought it was really well executed.
This is how you get different diseases.
And I kind of got just this hint of sadness from it too. Like, oh, this group is never going to be the same after this. They're going on like they are forever changed. And I thought it was that maybe one of the best scenes in the movie. Honestly,
It's one of those things that evokes nostalgia, even if there is no nostalgia. Like, even if it hasn't been a long time, it gets you that feeling of like, oh, those were the days.
We've done things together, and this is. It was a movie like, yes, it is telling the story as if it's in the present, but you already feel like this moment is past. Like, it's like you can already see the next movie looking back on this scene nostalgically.
Yeah,
you know.
Yep. This is one of those few movies that already has that nostalgic feel for me. I've only seen it one time before this. And that's why when you ask that first question, does it kind of hold up? I think it does.
Yeah. I mean, it's only been 4 years, but still,
I know, even more.
Yeah,
even more so.
Yeah, I think the reason we feel that nostalgia is because, you know, you have a group of friends who have bonded and they get through hardship, and then their adventure is over and it's never going to be the same again. And that just really pinpoints that feeling of like, oh, those were the days.
Yep. Yeah, they all share that memory.
And then I don't know why, but this always hits me like the
that's true.
Sadly.
The line that keeps being passed around early on in the film is like, it's summer, we're kids, we should be having fun, you know? And I know that feeling where you're like, no, I don't want to deal with that right now. I just want to, you know, be in my solitude and in my good, happy place.
Yeah,
I don't want to be burdened with this thing that I shouldn't even be burdened with in the first place.
Yep.
But then you have Billy saying, if someone says it's summer one more time.
I know, I
Bill's
love
like,
that.
we're killing this clown. We're doing it.
That part.
I know what I'm doing about my summer experience essay.
What I did over the
man.
summer.
Imagine having to do that.
They would top
the
everybody's
following
story.
year, and they're
They're at that age where that would have been a prompt.
And they're just trying to like.
Well, I killed
man,
the space cosmic clown.
I can't remember what I
All the
did.
adults are like, meh, you know, just another missing child, another day in
Dairy.
Dairy.
Oh my gosh.
What I really liked was behind the scenes, the children who are a part of this. I mean, this was a monumental experience for them. A lot of them, it was their first major movie. And they had them bond together, and they filmed over the summer. So this was a summer experience for them. And I think one of them even said it was the best summer of their life.
That was Stan.
Stan.
Yeah,
And
the kid that played Stan.
when I watched that, it made it more real for me. I was like,
Like, oh,
Wow, these guys just bonded and had an entire friendship
Yeah.
for a summer. I don't know.
It gives you.
I think that
Oh,
added
sorry.
to. Sorry, I think that adds to the acting. And usually when you watch a movie and you see a lot of good chemistry on set or everyone seems to work really well together, if you look behind the scenes, you end up finding out that they actually really did grow friendships.
Yeah.
And so it shows through the artwork.
Yeah, it definitely gives you the Lord of the Rings behind the scenes vibes.
Yeah.
Just everyone's having a great time. They all like
Yeah.
each other.
They like
They're all
coming into work.
extremely invested into their characters.
Yeah, I think
110%.
underground underage orgy might have killed that a little bit.
Yeah,
it would've ruined that
definitely.
vibe.
I don't think audiences would be ready for that.
The end.
Yeah.
All right. So that concludes the story portion of this podcast. We're going to take a quick break. And on the other end, we will get into our brief reviews with numbered scores, get into what critics thought, talk some box office, and see where this franchise was at 2017. So we'll see y'all then. Welcome back. Let's review It. See, I started it different this time. Are you happy about that?
What are we
It's the
reviewing?
first time in a
Norbit?
long time.
Norbit. Yeah, AJ's reviewing Norbit. The rest of us are reviewing It.
Gosh, you have a very boring movie to review.
So, David, you want to pull our scores at random from that bowl you have?
I think I will. What is gonna happen? Me first. Interesting. All right. David with an
That's really interesting.
Interesting.
8.5.
All right.
Now, I'm just gonna go ahead and bump this up. There's no reason for me to give it lower than a 9. I was thinking about it this whole movie. I'm like, why did I give this an 8.5?
You don't like horror?
That's a testament to why this deserves more, because I really enjoyed this movie and I hate horror. I guess this is a horror because it is scary. It's genuinely scary. But it tells a story that actually makes me feel something. I enjoy what was on screen. The actors gave 110%. The music was phenomenal. The direction, just watching the behind the scenes, and maybe that's what really pulled me through. When you see the people who have a passion for something and it perfectly comes through on screen, how do you give it it's not a bad score, but how do you not give it more credit? In the end, this movie itself was, I would say, a near perfect movie. And I'm going to give it a 9.
From someone who does not like horror,
I hate horror.
that's impressive.
Yeah. So 9 for David.
Next.
Next up, Irina with a 9.5.
Dang.
I love this movie. I think it was the first movie about a Stephen King story that, in a while, that had actually grabbed my attention. There are a few issues, and maybe if they rearranged some things, developed the relationships between some of the adults a little more, I think it would have been perfect. I just can't find a lot of flaws in this for me because I just enjoyed the experience. So a lot of that is because a lot of this rating is because of personal preference. So they did well with the story material, and I think they stayed true to the source.
So, being the only person here who read the book,
Uh-huh.
what would you rank the book?
Oh, the book's really good. I think as far as a reading experience, I would recommend The Shining more because it's more concise.
You and I read that together.
Yeah, it's so good. But it is really good if you kind of want to get lost in a story. It can be kind of a little more confusing because there are a lot of elements you have to keep track of at the same time. And because it's so long, you start to forget details from the beginning of the book. So I would say that's the one criticism I would have. Otherwise, it's a enjoyable reading experience.
All right. We got 9 and 9.5 on the board so far. It's doing really well.
Alrighty. Next up is Noah with a perfect 10.
Oh my gosh. Wow,
yeah.
you guys.
You're not
Nothing
in
wrong
bad
with
company. I thought about it, by the way, Noah. I actually thought about it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it boiled down to just, like, yes, you can maybe fault it with how the parents are portrayed. However, I was able to ultimately not just overlook that, but identify that that's not exactly wrong for them to focus the film way more on the kids. And in fact, that's what I really like about this, along with just the perfect performances of all the characters, the great score, your ability to feel immersed in this movie, and I don't know, I just think it's
This is upper echelon for you.
I think it is my favorite horror movie.
Whoa.
Nice.
Like, I can't think of a horror movie that is better than this one.
Have you ever watched The Shining?
Yeah.
Okay.
I really like The Shining.
Maybe we shouldn't talk too much on that.
Yeah. But, you know, this one is, it's really good.
You don't like Silver Bullet as much?
No. I mean, I like Silver Bullet quite a bit. But
I know. And listen to our other episode, you can actually hear what Noah's review is.
there you go, yeah.
Yep. Should we move on?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Next up is AJ with an 8.5.
So I'm going to be kind of drafting off of David here. And kind of, as we've said, both David and I are not huge horror fans. I wouldn't say I hate horror. It just, I don't gravitate towards it. So, and, you know, the context in which you watch a horror movie definitely makes a difference. But I'm curious, you know, David, how rewatchable was this movie for you?
Honestly, I know where this is going, but I'm going to say honestly, this is a rewatchable movie. This is a very good movie. Now,
so
what
you would
you
subjugate
compare
yourself
that
to the terrors of it.
I would.
You know, not as easily digested as some monstrous yetis playing football.
Yeah,
There
playing
it is.
football.
There it is.
Yeah, a movie that David notoriously gave a 7 out of 10 to.
Yes, but honestly, this is a movie I would
Sorry, what was
rewatch.
that movie again?
It was Tomb of the Dragon Emperor.
Yeah, Tomb of the Dragon Emperor. David gave it a 7 out of 10.
Yeah.
Yeti's football.
Why do we always say Yeti? Can we say something other than Yetis playing
No,
football?
it
How
will
about
always be Yetis
Because
in
nothing
football.
else is memorable.
Well, that's
about
what
it.
that's what you were
Lee?
talking about whenever you said
I didn't know.
everything could be.
We could say Jet Li playing with his balls.
he did play with his balls.
That's
his earth
terrifying.
balls.
That is a horror. Right there.
All right, but AJ,
After that check box is done, so I thought about a 9 myself, and that was kind of a gut reaction, shooting from the hip, and then I,
Right.
you know, for this isn't rewatchable for me. Not that, you know, it's just not my thing with horror. I guess I could watch it. I mean, if I was in a group of people, yeah, I'd rewatch it, but you know, I would have
same
put this
with
on
me.
just to, yeah. So I'm comfortable with an 8.5, and that's for personal taste reasons.
Yeah.
You know, I've said a few times that I definitely prefer more of the psychological thriller versus the monster supernatural horror scares. Now, that granted, this movie does well in balancing those, and I was surprised because I was expecting just, you know, jump scares, whatever, clowns.
clowns.
But this did more in that regard to balance some of that. But that's also kind of the detriment, in my opinion, where I thought they had a real opportunity to be a true double threat and tackle some of the psychological thriller and actual horror things very well. And that would be, you know, a perfect movie, in my opinion. If they can tackle both of those things on a good front, they didn't, in my opinion. And I disagree that, you know, that they didn't need to flesh out the background of the parents or the town itself. Like, I get that vibe of it. And we talked about Stephen King, you know, that small town vibe. I needed more of that. Like, you get the superficial level of that. And I honestly think that vibe is primarily because of the visual style, which is excellent. You know, all the shadows, even Pennywise, like they attack you on all senses with the visuals, your sense of hearing. You know, you hear him on the radio broadcast just interrupting on the TV or whatever, talking about what people are doing, and that is eerie. It attacks you viscerally as well, and there's a sense of terror, but it's not so thought-provoking about, you know, the nature of evil in the man. They hint at it with the glint in the eyes, and just because they teased that, like, makes me want more of that from, you know, the man. Why the father, you know, abusing his son turns him into the bully that literally carves the flesh of, you know, people, or, you know, the arson of Mike's home and all that stuff. Like, if they delved into that while also throwing this like crazy alien terrifying thousand-toothed monster at you, then like, okay, yeah, I'm fully engaged on all fronts, and that's terrifying and an like crazy experience. Yeah. They could have done that, and they fell short, in my opinion. That's why I didn't bump it higher. So that's where I land on that. All but right. For not a fan of horror, it did very, very well.
Awesome.
All right, and last but not least, the saddest review of the group goes to Reese with an 8.
That's still
It's not
positive.
sad.
How does it make you feel, though, that you rated this lowest?
I feel good about it.
I think it's
Wait,
fine.
were you not convinced at all?
What?
I am solid in my resolve of how I feel about this
Dang,
movie.
I tried to make you feel bad.
I don't feel bad. I am gonna draft off AJ a little bit here.
Yeah, real quick before the other point I was going to say is the other thing that carried it so high was the skill of the acting of the kids.
Right.
And that
Yeah.
rapport.
They're
but
great.
The background of the character development fell short, and that's kind of a testament to how well they did on
Right.
screen physically, and Skarsgård as well.
Yeah. So I have 2 issues with this movie, and this is a movie that I think is great. So keep that in mind. I'm just going to bring it down a couple pegs in my review. I don't like Derry, Maine in this movie. And that when I originally asked y'all about y'all's feelings on this town and how if this felt like a Stephen King movie, and I said, yeah, it does feel like a Stephen King movie. This is one of the few that does. But one thing that it did not do for me was create this living, breathing world that feels Stephen King. He is so good at creating these small town, everyone in the town. It's like, oh, hey, I'm gonna get my snack at this guy. Oh, this old guy works there. That it's like, oh yeah, that's Mr. Jerry or whatever his name is. Like, there's none of those here. Everyone's creepy, and I know that this kind of enhances that the scare factor in that. Oh yeah, no one's gonna help these kids. But I also think it actually detracts from how scary it himself or Pennywise is. I think the parents are more scary than Pennywise is in some cases.
You have a very skewed understanding.
No, the father
horror.
of Beverly is
I
the
agree
most.
with him.
He's the most terrifying person in this movie. He is more terrifying in any way and more sick than Pennywise is. And it's anytime, like when I see Pennywise, it's like, oh, it's more fun. Like, it's like, what is Pennywise going to do? It's kind of fun. He's scary at times, but he's also just kind of like, what kind of creative scare am I going to see here?
You're so weird.
So I could have used just more to this town that makes it, you could still have this kind of rot to it where everyone's kind of corrupted, but also make the parents more interesting. They could have more layers to them. Like, I make them creepy, but in a honest, realistic way. My second problem with this movie, I think it is structurally inconsistent, especially at the point where every kid splits off to have their various scare. Like, that was like, for me, it broke me out of the immersion. I was like, this is a movie thing. This is like, okay, everyone's just going to get scared by Pennywise one after the other for 30, 45 minutes of this movie. And this movie's long. It's 2 hours and 15 minutes. I think it wears its length well. Like, it's well paced, but I think you could condense some of this midsection a little bit.
And enhance the parents'
Yeah, just flesh out the town a bit. Condense some of the scares. Like, I don't think we need to see every kid individually get scared by Pennywise. That's more of like, that's a book thing. Books have time to do that. Movies don't. They have to tell the story in a with more brevity, I feel like. Books, you can lounge around, read 30, 50 pages, and then go to sleep. But apart from that, those are my two negatives. That's the only reason I'm not as high as both of y'all. Mm-hmm. Everything else about this movie is top notch. I think this is one of the best Stephen King adaptations in a long time. I think it's really one of the main indicators of like the Stephen King Renaissance. I love Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise. I love the entire Losers Club except for the bottom two, Mike and Stu or Stanley, whatever his name is.
Stu, or might as well be Stu.
Yeah, those two are kind of like cast-offs, but the rest of the group they're so well done, especially the main three. This is one of the few movies to do a love triangle right in a believable way. I do really like this movie, and I feel bad being the lowest score of the bunch.
No, you're fine.
Good.
Because I think it's
8 isn't actually that low.
I know.
It's just in comparison.
I feel like I have to emphasize my problems with it to you guys because it's lower than all of y'all. But I do really enjoy this movie. I love the score. I love the aesthetic of it. I love Pennywise, and even though I don't like that all these scares are back to back to back to back, each individual sequence is so perfectly executed. It's enjoyable front to back. And I don't think it is excessively cheaply scary like a lot of horror movies are. It has substance. And so for that, I give it a lot of credit. So I will end my review 8 out of 10.
It's complicated too because Reese is a horror buff, I would say. And that being said, he also has a secondary podcast you should all check out, Jacob versus Evil. They review horror movies.
Jacob and Reese versus Evil, yeah.
Yeah. So if you're interested
Reese
in checking out more.
one.
Reese, if between the two, Reese would be the evil one. So check him out.
Thanks. So yeah, that concludes our reviews. AJ, you want to crunch those numbers for us?
Okay, so It 2017 got a 9 across our group here, which
I noticed it was 8, 8.5, 9, 9.5, 10. Like each one of us was a 0.5 difference from the other.
That's so weird. I don't think
It's
that's
scary.
happened before.
Yeah, but continue.
All right, so group average of a 9. That ties it with Leon the Professional. Puts it just above A Fistful of Dollars, which had an 8.9, and puts it below Die Hard and The Prince of Egypt. Oh, excuse me. Puts it below The Prince of Egypt and Django Unchained at a 9.1.
Sounds right.
Great company.
Cool. Yeah, despite my review, it is still very nicely, snugly up there. And AJ's review, I should say. Let's move into what critics thought. On Rotten Tomatoes, this movie has an 86%.
Wow.
With an audience score of 84%. Critics higher than audience.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And
you don't see that very often.
What makes that even better is that horror is very rarely reviewed well.
I will say horror is going through a bit of a renaissance right now, and actually horror is hot.
So
I
hot
will
right
say.
now.
I mean, look at
critics,
all the
critics like it. Trust me.
Look at all the sequels to like I'd say movies like Sinister, Conjuring aren't rated highly enough.
They're still rated pretty highly, but no, seriously, horror is going through a serious renaissance with movies like Hereditary and Bewitched, The Lighthouse, Midsummer. There's Get Out. Us.
There's 2 of those that can just leave.
Those
this
are all.
list, but-
Those are all critically acclaimed horror movies, though.
critically acclaimed.
But
They
that's
really are.
also because those movies are almost perfectly made.
Yeah, but there's a glut of them right now. It's surprising.
Don't ever use that word again.
Glut. Glut. All right, moving on to the box office. Oh no, sorry. Metacritic. This movie has a 69, which is in the green, and 69.
Nice.
With an audience score of 7.8. So a higher audience score on Metacritic versus the critics' 69.
Pretty high on Metacritic.
69.
Nice.
All right. IMDb, 7.3. It is in the green zone. So overall, positive
Nice.
reviews.
No.
Positive reviews for it. Critics and audiences liked this first entry in this franchise. It's not like God tier, but it is definitely well regarded. So that's good news for all of us, I feel like.
I think so.
Box office, this movie released on September 8th in 2017. And also playing in the theaters at the time were Home Again, The Hitman's Bodyguard, and Annabelle Creation. This movie was budgeted at $35 million, so it is a higher budget for a horror movie, but when compared to other films, it is mid-tier. All right, worldwide, what did this movie do at the box office? Let's start with AJ.
Wait, what's the box office? Or what's the budget? Sorry.
Oh, what's
I
the
literally just said that.
I didn't hear it. I'm sorry.
35 million.
3.5.
Thank you.
So
35.
I have no idea. I know it was very popular because of, all the costumes and the Fallout and everything referenced afterwards. 450. I don't know how to judge horror numbers.
All right,
Holy
450.
crap. That's a massive
It's a
number
big number.
over budget.
It's a big number. David.
I'm trying to do the math. Normally, like, to get a sequel, which this did, you have to get triple budget. This obviously had a massive hit when it first came out.
Give us a number.
350. I don't know.
350. So AJ, you were 400, right?
450.
450, sorry. 450, 300.
350 is what I said.
450 for AJ, sorry guys. David, 350. Irina,
375.
375. Noah.
All right. So I think I have a vague recollection that this movie didn't just do very well, it did exceedingly
Well, what AJ
extravagantly well.
What we said was extravagant. Like,
No,
this is
I
like
know,
20
I know.
times the
I
budget.
know.
Like,
I know. I think we're somewhere near $1 billion.
Okay.
Like,
Okay, go,
I
go for it
want
now.
to say 800 million.
Holy
800.
crap.
And Noah is the winner.
Crap.
Dang.
I think I'm even selling it short.
I
No,
think-
you're not,
not?
but you are the closest.
Okay.
I think Noah knew too much.
Close by how much? I
Yeah.
gotta know.
I just remembered it being like, whoa, this is the most record-breaking horror we've
Yeah.
ever seen.
Actually, the Joker is the biggest, like, that one hit $1 billion.
Damn.
But
Wow.
it did extremely well. Noah is right. So AJ, you're our runner-up, by the way, so you get a little trophy there. But Noah gets the gold medal. It made $702 million
Wow.
Okay.
That's
worldwide.
insane.
I overshot a little bit.
Yeah, this movie was
But not by too much.
this movie was a gargantuan hit. No one was expecting this movie to do this well. They knew it would do well. It had buzz around it, but no one thought it would do this well. I believe projections for this one, its opening weekend were around like 50, 60 million, and its opening weekend ended up being 125 million.
Like, this is marketing at its finest. That
Cla-
marketing.
clowns, man.
No. I'm just gonna say it was marketing. Like, they marketed the crap out of this, but it's also Stephen King, and it's something
Yeah.
people knew.
So
It was
Planted
like-
the
it was
clown
the
suit people. It was all a marketing ploy.
So it's basically,
gosh.
I think it's an example of the stars aligned because you had Stranger Things coming out. People were already excited about this 80s nostalgia. And then Stephen King,
It was
you
the
know,
trifecta of, like, everything.
Like Stephen King is big, and then you haven't seen it in a while. Those that did only saw the miniseries, and that one's kind of so like
Yep.
having a fresh coat of paint on that
Yep.
story is it was at the perfect moment.
Yeah. So to this day, it is the sixth highest grossing R-rated movie of all time.
What?
And the highest grossing horror movie of all time.
Yeah, it's crazy.
This one is number one horror at the box office. How
Wait,
crazy is that?
Wait,
horror.
Horror.
What was the other one you said earlier?
Sixth
said
highest
Joker.
R-rated movie.
Oh, Joker. Yeah, that's not horror. Yeah,
Yeah.
No, sixth highest R-rated movie. Joker's a drama.
crazy.
Yeah, this movie, huge business, and it's almost kind of a joke to go into our franchise portion of this.
Killing joke.
Yeah, for one, yeah, good one. If we were talking to Joker, But this movie already sets itself up as a part 1. Like, it's, like, fairly obvious.
Yeah.
Like,
They
this is
knew where
part-
they're getting money.
Yeah, this is part 1.
because I'm an idiot.
No, you're
I'm
fine.
gonna tell the
I-
last like title or the end card where it's like chapter 1, but
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's fine. It is the story concludes, so you're not an idiot. It's just you could see they tease that this beast shows up every 27 years. Obviously, like in the next 27 years we're going to see it
Right.
again. And that title card obviously. But yeah, it did an extremely good business, and they had already I think they had already had plans for the sequel. This only reinforced that. So really not much to talk about in terms of franchise, potential other than, it's getting a sequel.
Yeah.
There's It Chapter 2. That's kind of a no-brainer.
Listen to the next episode.
It made
it called
$702 million. That's really the end of it. Like,
How
honestly.
much did Endgame make?
Endgame made
that made
almost
gross.
$3 billion, I think. Yeah, no,
Holy crap.
but that's Endgame. That's like an anomaly. All right, with It in the books, we're going to go ahead and skip the sequel and move on to Maximum Overdrive.
No.
I'm just kidding.
Get out of here.
Next week, we're talking about It Chapter 2.
Chapter 2.
Y'all excited?
I'm so excited.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah.
I kind of just want to watch it now.
I know. Honestly, when we finished the movie, we were like, let's just throw the second one on. Let's see what happens. But yeah,
I think what happened.
I'm excited. I'm actually more excited to see, like, because I'm not gonna tease it. I'm not gonna say anything. I'm very tempted
it's
to say
hard
it,
not to, right?
but yeah, I'm just excited to talk about It Chapter 2. So let's just leave
Me
it at
too.
that. So, any final words? Are we done?
We done.
We done. Oh, that wasn't. Come on, you can do better. You got to drool a little bit.
Okay, please don't.
Please stop.
Yeah, he's actually drooling. Actually drooling. That was gross.
All right. On that note, goodbye, you guys. Y'all have a good one.
Bye.
Later.
he's licking Hamburger Helper.